I went to school, to university and majored in psychology. I thought I wanted to be a teacher. So I went to actually go and pursue that and pursue English. But I found that what I discovered that what I loved about English were the plays and the characters and the people. And when I found psychology and in particularly social psychology, that was really of great interest to me. I grew up in my father's construction company, working there on summers, etc. And it was particularly interesting to me because I would watch some of the miscommunications that would happen between the engineering bid room when they had planned out what the job should be, and then they handed over to the in those days always the men on the job sites and the foreman, but not really doing a handoff, and then both being really frustrated they didn't know what the other had assumed terms of how the meeting went. And that was really probably what lit the interest in me about communication and other such things in organizations. So what is social psychology, which is my specialty? So it's what things affect people's behavior, how they think, how they react. So, how do people handle change, as we were just talking about? What are some different ways you can motivate people? Why do some people withdraw in a group setting and other people engage? Why do some group dynamics cause conflict, and how do really effective groups work through that? So that's really what social psychology is about. So it's nothing, it's all about normal people like all of you. And so it's very much how we work in community in connection with others. And so I found after I went to the University of Western Ontario, I remember one time one of the professors saying to me, Anne, you've got to promise me you don't apply for grad school here. And I was like, well, why? What have I done to offend you? And he said, you're too practical. You always want to know how would a business use this? And, we really just like to research and don't necessarily try and figure out how a business could use our thoughts. But they said there is a program in Canada, it's in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and it's a program in applied social psychology. So if you're thinking of going anywhere, you should go there. So I'd never been to Saskatoon, but I applied, and that's where I went. And I'm very, very thankful that I was able to study in applied social psychology. So, in essence, it is taking the theory and ideas of social psychology, but applying it to the world. And some of my peers do it in community, but I chose all along to do it in business to be able to really focus in on all of that. Ah, and Tommy's married to a social psychologist. We'll have to hear more about this in a minute. So I've been really lucky. As I say, I grew up in my father's company. I've always been fascinated. And one of the other things that we did in our master's program that I was ever so thankful for was we had to actually go and get some consulting gigs free, but we had to go and sell ourselves to different not-for-profit agencies, etc. Talk about how we could help them do a program evaluation and those skills of just even being able to sell and contract and all those things. I was so thankful that I got to learn that as well when I did my master's. I did go on to do my work on my PhD at the University of Windsor, which became the second program in Canada to have applied social psychology, but I'm what they call an ABD, all but dissertation. I ended up leaving for some because I was already working in the consulting field full time, which is what I wanted to do. So I was very lucky that way. I was also very lucky because a couple of years later, I ended up coming back to the University of Windsor and facilitating a partnering meeting between them and Bell Canada. And much to my absolute surprise was my department head and the head of graduate studies. And I was very happy that both of them came up and said, you made a good decision. I did ask them to write in a note from my mother, who at that time was still mortified that I dropped out of the program. But anyways, I felt good. So I started my own consulting firm 25 years ago, and we focus on leadership, performance, and change. And I'll say a little bit more about those types of things, but leaders trying to be more effective, management teams trying to be more consistent, making sure a team's performing, individuals are performing, new employees are performing. And I've been helping companies manage change and deal with resistance and to find ways to change their culture, etc. About 6 years ago, I got involved in another organization, which we do in conjunction with 2WA Consulting. And it has just been such a fantastic experience for me. So I'm with an organization called McKay CEO Forums, and I facilitate, I find them, and then I create them. I have four forums, and three of my forums are presidents or chief executive officers, or someone else with profit and loss responsibility for an organization that's 10 million or larger. So 50 employees or larger often is how that works out. And I bring them together 7 times a year to talk about some of their hardest issues and share the experience with others. So create an environment where they can be very vulnerable. They're talking to people in totally different industries. But when they talk about how did you deal with, we've obviously done a lot around COVID lately, but when you're doing that strategy, or when you were considering a merger, or when you were trying to change your culture, whatever it might be, and then the others very happily share. And my fourth forum is an executive forum. So they are people who report to a president, and it's a 90-day virtual experience. The other ones have been partially virtual or mainly virtual in COVID, but we'll be back to that and face to face very soon. They're all in southwestern Ontario, so my groups go from about people live from London over to Kitchener-Waterloo, Oakville, Hamilton, Burlington, um, Niagara, etc. Um, so what are sort of some of the things that I do is what 2WA gets hired to do. So we were just working with a company that had 3 retail stores, and uh, the management team was not working together effectively. What that actually meant was that some of the managers were from the other 2 retail stores, but they were supposed to be working with this other retail store all under the same bridge and be a united management team there. And they were like, you're this team and you're this team, or you're this store and you're this store. There's a lot of conflict, a lot of poor communication. And so we were brought in to help mend that and get them back working together effectively. We're also working with a organization does freight forwarding, huge organization, and we're helping the senior team not only with their strategic plan and their goals, but also that senior management team has declared that they do work very independently from each other. So unless it's a senior management meeting, they barely speak, and trying to work to get them to work much more interdependently because they need to get more consistency across, because they're losing employees because of the lack of consistency from one area to another. Another company right down in the Niagara area, we're helping them reestablish its culture. So over COVID, 18 months, no one in. They have had 30 new employees join them that they've never met. But they also have had a lot of turmoil, some real resentment of some of the things. So they really want to try to get back to their roots and kind of go forward to work, not back to work, but really come to back deciding what they want to focus. And I'm working with another senior team, which are doing too much collaborating, and so they feel like they're never getting anything done. So we're going to work actually next week on getting the